Yeah, what's happening? We about to bring that action. Gotta hold it down for my Seattle Kraken. Ay, we going beneath the waves. We going beneath the waves. Get it hype, step onto the ice. Ready for some action. Release the Kraken. Ay, we going beneath the waves. Going beneath the waves.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Beneath the Waves podcast, your weekly source of all things Seattle Kraken and beyond. I am Matt,
I'm Heather.
I'm Derek. And I'm Alex.
and we are now on episode 15 of the B2W pod. We'd like to welcome in all our friends, old and new. Huge thank you to everyone who has joined us so far, dropped us a follow, left us a review. As always, we have a loaded show for you this week with some Kraken injury updates in the news, the game recaps, we check down on Coachella Valley, and we have a discussion in the hockey world around the sound table. Heather, would you like to take us through the news for this week?
So in our news this week, I really only have injury updates. We do have some positive things, though. Jordan Eberle, basically, I was watching some of our media people at practice, and with Circling Seattle Sports, they said that he was putting in some work before practice, both on 122 and then more recently as well with skills coach Matt Lark. And after practice, Dan Bylsma said that his progression of hitting the ice the last few days is unprecedented and that, quote, he's dealing with an injury that was really not seen before in terms of athletes, which is wild to me that this is what we're looking at. And then he's coming back from this. Crazy. He also said he's been doing a lot in the gym and he's been eager to step onto the ice. And it's really just stepping onto the ice at this point in time, having skates on, feeling the ice a little bit. It's not much more than moving around a little bit. But he is done with his 8 weeks combined of no to little weight bearing, and he's still a few weeks away from game action. But we've seen him walking around and, looks pretty good. So really positive there with Jordan Eberle. Yanni Gord has also been seen around the locker room after practices at games as well. Still nothing more there except that it's a mid-body injury. So hopefully we find out a little more about that soon, or that he's just back. Because again, like I said last time, we miss our pepper pot. I have a special section for the Capitals game. I was calling it the Capitals game of horrors because we had so many just banged up Kraken. Luckily, most these people are all back, and I'll talk about that. But Chandler Stevenson tried to stop a puck with his left glove about halfway through the second period of this Capitals game. He went down the tunnel and he came back for the second, but he wasn't on the bench for the third. Coach Bylsma said there was no further updates after the game and he was undergoing further evaluation. Also in that game, Jared McCann seemed to be injured in the second. He was putting little weight on his left leg and he was definitely in pain. You could see it when he was on the bench, but he stayed the entire game. And then Ellie Tolvanen also was seen hunched over and in pain on the bench after he took a shot, and it seemed like maybe his wrist. But he finished the game and was at practice on Friday, even though the other two weren't. But all three of those players were back in for the Penguins game, thankfully. So all good on that front. But I did want to mention it because sometimes these injuries come back to haunt. And so just keep an eye on these guys because they play through a lot. So just keep an eye on. Hopefully it's not long term.
All right, Heather, awesome. Thank you for that. It was kind of a slower week for us in the Kraken world since we last recorded. Only 2 games to recap. We went 50-50 on those games with 1 win and 1 loss. How is everybody feeling at the end of this week?
To be honest, such a 50-50 feeling on this team. Some games they really come out to play, and then there's other games where they just don't play at all. But what I'm really going to focus on is Joey Daccord. Joey Daccord is a top 10, probably a top 5 goaltender in the league. And I don't care. You can't argue with this. It's just fact. I wish we had a team that could compete with him, because if we actually had a team that could compete, we'd be fighting for not only a Stanley Cup playoff spot, but I think we'd be competing for a Stanley Cup, because when you have that type of a goaltender behind you and who is reliable in every single way, your team can do a lot of things. Unfortunately, the Kraken can't do a lot of things, and Joey Daccord can only do so much. So, vibe check, feeling good, feeling sad. Joey Daccord is God.
I actually took a little time today to kind of scroll through the general Kraken fan base on Twitter, which is a little bit scary sometimes. But I was just curious what everyone else was kind of thinking because I was having a hard time kind of thinking actually like what I'm feeling around the team because I feel like we here are like celebrating every little tiny thing because that's what we have to hold on to, like shots on goal or a great pass or, the PK looked good or there's a power play goal. Like, really small things that maybe we wouldn't be celebrating if we were on a way to the playoffs. And so I was kind of looking, and I think everyone else is sort of doing the same right now because that we have to hold on to something with the team, and it's our team. Like that's one thing about it is like if you're a Kraken fan, you're a Kraken fan. We see that over and over again. But a couple of things also stood out to me. Like the fan base is 100% unquestionably, undeniably behind Joey Decord right now. Like seeing his praises, can't get enough of him, can't get enough of his energy, just all things JDax. And I actually love that because Joey is also putting everything out there every single night for the team. And I think that he's being rewarded just by the fan base, just also, sharing in that with him. So I love that. I'm also noticing that people are coming around on somebody we talk a lot about, which is Chandler Stevenson. So I'm noticing that too. And I think, the team is so strange in that we can compare it to other teams, but if you just look at our team, like you can't deny the impact that he's having. It just really depends on what you're comparing, right? If we're comparing to like a different team and different players and all-star players and like the top lines that just always go down and can score, sure. Okay, great. But if we're talking about our team, like he's crushing it, right? He's second in points with 35 behind McCann with 38, and he has the most assists at 27. Like I think we just have to understand that like some of the stats aren't showing the amazing passes and plays that he's actually setting up and making. So I noticed a little bit of that too, which I wanted to share just because, we've been talking about him and his impact, and I think others are noticing it too. So overall, vibe is like, here we are. We're supporting the team. We love this team. We're going to celebrate these small things. And I just think, Joey, I just don't know. That's all. Even the Capitals game, that's all I have to say about it when we get there is Joey. So I guess that's my vibe is Joey.
Yeah, Heather, I think you did a really great job of like contextualizing the way that a lot of fans are sort of dealing with the fact that the season's not going very great. And I think you guys are both correct in highlighting Joey Daccord because you just can't highlight him enough. But I just kind of wanted to say like I really appreciated something I heard from Bilesmo, which is just like isolating these little like 3 game chunks and like winning 2 out of 3. In like our last 6, we've won 4 out of 6. So like you can take 2 3 game chunks and win 2 out of 3. That's pretty fun. Stuff like that's fun. There's like 82 games. There's like thousands of shots on goal. Maybe not if you're the Kraken per season, and just so many different things going on. It can feel very like overwhelming if there aren't like little bitty things you can grab onto to like keep your investment up. So things like Schwartz, Kako, Beniers having like popping off, having point streaks, stuff like that is so fun as a fan, and that's I think what we were kind of missing. Not in the beginning of the year, but in that gap between the beginning of the year and now. And it definitely feels like right now there's like a cool thing going on with like Decord and with a couple of our players that are popping off, where even though we are all like we're not making the playoffs, it's still like fun. You can get invested. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel right now.
I'd like to preface this by saying that my vibe check comes courtesy of Instagram via Kraken Season, Kraken SZN. A great follow. Go and check that out. Lots of really good highlights and stats and things like that. My first starts with a retraction on my vibe check from last week because last week I asked where is Jared McCann been because I felt like he wasn't anywhere. But Kraken Season had a Seattle Kraken who's hot and cold post over the last 10 games, seeing where people are at. And Jared McCann has had 10 points in the last 10 games. So I think striving for a point a game is pretty good. It's just only one of those points has come from goals. So I think that's where my confusion and loss for him has stemmed from. I will hold fast to my where has Brendan Montour gone because he's had 1 assist in the last 10 games. So we don't like that. We want that to really turn around and get him on the hot column. Now, I'm glad that Heather brought up Chandler Stevenson because as the foremost Chandler Stevenson supporting pod out there and probably only Chandler Stevenson supporting person out there, in this graphic, it has Capo Caco has 3 goals and 10 points in the last 10 games. Chandler Stevenson has 3 goals, 10 points in the last 10 games. And I think there's just like an expectation on him. It's like, well, Stevenson's been a vet for this much longer and makes X times more than Capo Caco does. But like Heather said, he's contributing to the game. I think everyone's got to start pumping this guy's tires and get over the fact that, oh, the contract's too much, the term is garbage, he's not deserving of 6 point whatever million dollars a year. I think he's contributing to the team, and we've said this on episodes 2, 5, 7, 9, 13, and 14, I'm sure, but he's contributing to this team. I like having this guy on the team. His play with Maddie in the Penguins game that we're going to talk about later was absolutely crazy with Maddie's behind the back pass, then Chandler Stevenson firing right back to him. So I'm still going to continue blowing trumpets for this guy and fanfare and all that kind of stuff in hopes that the Kraken Twitter internet verse hops on at some point as well. So a little peek behind the BTW curtain here. In our show notes video every week, it says like M is doing this section and D is doing this section, H is doing this section. Going into our game recaps, we start with game 49 versus the Washington Capitals, and our designation for this is just group sadness because this was a 3-0 loss to the Washington Capitals. So who in our group wants to put out their sadness first? Maybe Derek, do you want to take it? Because you're actually at the game, so maybe you can speak to the arena experience and what it was like there.
Yeah, I was at the game, and something about the arena experience that made me very sad was I wasn't able to tune in to hear you guys on your live stream because it was so loud there. Everyone's just, jib jabbering or whatever out in the concourse area and just talking so much. Like, guys, okay, shut up for a second. I need to hear what they're saying. So a couple times I put the thing right up to my ear and I heard someone talking about like NFL teams or something. I hope your guys' stream went well, other than the fact that this game was not good. The expected goals were 4.54 to 2.09 Capitals. And this is a Capitals team, despite having this washed Ovechkin that can only score on empty nets, they are just lights out, like cup contender favorites. They're insane. They're insane to watch live. That was really cool actually seeing this team play live. They just look unreal. And so like one of the biggest things I noticed was anytime there's like a loose puck or a puck in the air or a defenseman's trying to hold the puck in the zone, like every single Capitals player has like the best hand-eye coordination in the world and the quickest reaction time to everything. And I think those are like the two biggest skills in hockey you can have. And I think they have like the best guys at it. We were really slow to get to a lot of stuff. They were really fast on everything. The first period was looking good, but I think we got worn out and just got sloppy. But yeah, ended up being like 2-0, and then Ovechkin, as we'll mention later, he gets another goal towards his record. Yeah.
Capitals are like a really good team, by the way, too. So they had won 5 straight. So this was their 6th win in a row. So I didn't expect a win from us. I just maybe expected a goal. I don't know. Like I feel bad that Derek sat there and didn't see a goal at all. Like that one game I went to and I waited till the 3rd to see a goal. It's just like a sad thing. But I don't know. Anyway, Joey was great. The Capitals had 6 breakaway chances, a 2-on-0, and they only scored on 1 of those. So that just shows you how amazing Joey was, especially that night. Shane Wright got over 17 minutes of ice time. So, I'm celebrating that, probably partly because Chandler Stevenson was out for a bit, but still, I'm going to take it and celebrate it because obviously he still did a great job on the ice. So continue giving Shane Wright more minutes. And I'm not going to get too sad about it. It's over. It's done. It was a horror show, as I talked about in the injuries. So glad everybody's back now. And that is that game.
So Derek finally got to experience a game that I got to experience, my only Kraken game where I literally was pleading with the hockey gods for a goal. And do you know what I got? A big fat 0. So Derek, welcome to the club because that is how it feels.
Dude, I was at every single home game for the inaugural season. This is not the first shutout I've experienced.
Yeah, well, do you know what? Then I got to experience your experience of dealing with shutouts because it sucks. Yeah, what could I say? It's funny how quickly the Kraken offense can just dry up, where you're just like pleading and searching for anything, and and you're celebrating the shots, because that's basically what we were doing, just celebrating the shots and the attempts that we made along the way. And unfortunately, none of those actually went in. But let's look at a positive here. Joey Daccord making his 100th career game, NHL start. That's awesome. Here are some of the stats for him. His record's 38, 38, and 15. So altogether, not that bad of a stat line when it comes to his record, especially when you look at the fact that most of those in the last 2 years he was playing as a backup or as an emergency call up for whether that be the Ottawa Senators or the Seattle Kraken. His goals against average is 2.66. That's pretty fabulous for 100 games in the NHL. And then his save percentage is 910. And you can really see that he's coming into his own. He's getting better and better each game, and he's all reliable. So not a lot of positives, but definitely can look at that as a positive.
Yeah, standout moment for me with it being a stream game. Had lots of fun friends come by who've been becoming regulars around our parts. So really like having you guys come and all keep us company. That's awesome. Joey's 100th career game is always going to be an exciting kind of milestone. Perhaps tease for the future, a milestone that's going to be marked by something from your friends at Beneath the Waves. Stay tuned for more on that. And yeah, it was just it was a nice night to hang out with you guys, I guess. There was that. We got our once a week 2.75 hour hangout, even if it wasn't the most exciting. But anytime that I get to share with the three of you in Seattle Kraken based misery is just fine and dandy with me. But we move along now into game number 50, which was against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Derek, what happened in that game?
So I think we should stick to streaming games like against the Penguins because this one was also fun. Also, speaking of counting shots, that was also against the Penguins. So it was nice to have a game like this after the last time we played the Penguins. So a couple things. Joey. 3.62 expected goals for the Penguins. They only score one. 1.83 expected goals for the Kraken. We end up getting four. So hallmark Kraken game of getting goals that you not necessarily should be getting, but all of them looked good. The first period, it was scoreless and it was boring. That's my note on that. Then there was a ton of sustained pressure by the Penguins, and Chris Letang got the puck on the left side on the point, and Chandler Stevenson, oh my goodness, he ripped it out of Letang's hands and just marched on down the ice. There was a 2-on-1, but then Stevie, he's like, I got all the time in the world. And by the way, I forgot to mention this, but while I was at the Capitals game, the fan right behind me, I actually know him. He's a very experienced hockey fan, probably 40 years. And he was like, did you see that pass that Stevenson made where he just had one hand on his stick, received the puck, and then dished it out? He's like, the game moves at like a quarter speed for that guy. He's so smart. And so that factors in right here because he slows up. It's a 2-on-1. He sees that Burakovsky's trailing, passes back to him, who sends it over to Oliver Bjorkstrand, who nets the first goal in 2 games. So, Mike, Sasquatch, I want my Bjorkstrand prediction from the game against Washington to count for this because it was the first goal that was scored by the Kraken. And that was a sweet one-timer goal. 2 minutes or so later, Sidney Crosby, or as Matt always says in our chat, Sidney Crispy. Is that correct, Matt? Is it Sidney Crispy? Okay, gotcha.
According to the fictitious Fanatics worker that I invented that one time.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And then on that goal, Riker and Beniers were both kind of like either like one of them was messing up. I don't really know which one, but both of them were like super far down low, and Crosby was like in the slot by himself, so that can't be happening. Another amazing game by Decord, like I said, best player for the Kraken in Kraken history with no doubt. I think we've been saying that for a really long time now. Especially me before the season. I saw it coming. You got to trust what I say. My predictions are great. In the second period, Vince Dunn from far out on a 5-on-3, absolute cannon of a shot. Jaden Schwartz, who is our net front guy, our hallmark net front guy, was standing in the net front, screening goalie, and Dunn just absolutely clapped it top right. Huge snipe. At that point, it was 2-1. Okay, and then after that, there was an amazing pass through 2 guys by McCann to go to Tolvanen, where he just one-timed it in as well. That was to go up 3-1, 15 minutes left in the third. And then Capo Caco on a 2-on-1 with Beniers. It's just like the most beautiful thing to see. And like a common theme of this, with the Stevenson coming down on the 2-on-1, or that turned into a 3-on-1, and then the Beniers Caco 2-on-1, it's so nice to see these opportunities and then to see them like score on them instead of it, Andrei Burakovsky sails it over the net for the millionth time. And so it's really cool to see this as well because Kako sends it over to Beniers, who just houses it instantly. It was a beautiful shot. And it was also an amazingly quick read by Kako. When he was coming in, he had to read the one defenseman, and as soon as his blade turned over to Kako, he sent it over to Beniers, which was just incredible timing. So Kako's amazing. Um, and he has 14 points in 17 games with the Kraken. So absolutely unreal.
So I'll pick up here. Big things for me in this one. Obviously, Joey, Joey, Joey. We're going to keep saying that till the end of time, it seems. Chandler Stevenson. I'm going to keep saying that till the end of time, it seems. 2 point game here was awesome. I'm just so glad that we didn't. It was the very last second of it, but I'm so glad that we didn't sully that 5-on-3 power play that we had. I was like, please, just don't let this one go to waste because this is a silver platter for us. So really glad that we capitalized on that, and seeing Vince Dunn get back in the scoring column was really good. Overall, this was a super fun game. I only got to like real dedicatedly watch the first half or so of the game. The last period I watched while doing grocery shopping at Costco, which is really how I feel all Kraken fans should experience Kraken hockey, is waiting for your Polish sausage at the Costco food court. And then you see Capo Caco score and you do a little happy dance and the kid beside you thinks that you're really weird. But awesome night for the Kraken. Hope we continue rolling that momentum. It's nice to get a sweep over the Penguins this season. Shout out to DPW. Did the Penguins win? Because I threw a little bit of shade his way, but it's all in good fun. It's all in jest. Shout out to Brendan for all he does over there. Yeah, fun afternoon of Saturday hockey for the Kraken. And we won for the kids. That's the big W. We did it for the kids.
I also really want those buoy slippers. Like, I feel like my feet would fit just fine in them, even though they're kids. So, like, I kind of want a pair. They're super cute. I think passing was particularly good in this game. That's a hit or miss skill for the team, and it was really great in this game. A lot of connectedness throughout the team and throughout the lines too, which I'm liking. A lot of great transition plays too. A lot of the goals came from transition plays. Some odd man rushes that I liked. Just some things that we see other teams doing that we don't always see the Kraken doing. I think it was Riker Evans during first intermission. He was being interviewed and he said that they were holding the Penguins to the perimeter again. I mean, I think that's just something that teams do to us. And it's really just nice to see us being able to kind of turn the tables and do that to another team because that's obviously going to stop them from scoring. The Ellie Tolvanen goal, I just wanted to bring it up again because so Jared McCann made an amazing pass. But before that, we have to talk about Shane Wright passing the puck to the corner. Like he passed it to the corner and then Jared was able to skate up to it and then pass it to Tolvi. Like the whole thing started off really amazingly. It was incredible. So just a really, really smart play all around. And I think those little details is what I like so much about watching Shane Wright plays, like those little things that you really have to watch and pick up on because that was so smart. Like he's just such a smart player. So but just overall, it was a really kind of a fun game to watch. I think anytime we're seeing multiple, scoring opportunities for the Kraken, it just is extra fun to watch. And so those are the things we're talking about where we're holding on to these things because it makes it much more enjoyable when we have a fun game thrown in here and there.
Overall, I like these types of games because it just shows you what the Kraken can do. And hats off to the Matty Beniers, Jaden Schwartz, and Capo Caco line. That line is just absolute fire. I think I mentioned it last week. I kind of said the same thing. The way that they can communicate and their chemistry is something we haven't seen, I don't believe, on the Kraken in the 4 years. Like there's three players that just really work well together. And they've just seemingly like took off running. Bringing up the fact that, I think Kako needs the extension, get it done now, because it's one of those players that you don't really want to take to restricted free agency and have to deal with him in the summer. Get it done now, get it sorted, get it figured out, and, sail off into the sunset knowing that, Matty's going to have a winger that he has chemistry with for the future. So love the game. Solid 2 points, gives us a little bit of hope because we're still in this battle. We really are. What is it, like 2.3% as the time of recording? So we have the chance. We have the chance,
79 points.
Past my 76-point prediction. So, we all three of you are going to be laughing at me because, there is that chance. So
you're telling me there's a
vibes.
chance.
Telling me there's a chance. this team will never lose again. So yeah, but overall, I'm happy, quite happy. So let's see what happens next week.
And now we're going to go to our desert dialogues, where we're talking about Coachella Valley. And the Coachella Valley Firebirds played on Wednesday, January 22nd at the San Jose Barracuda. Unfortunately, it was a 4-3 shootout loss. Coachella opened scoring at just a minute and 4 seconds into the game with Logan Morrison's 10th goal of the season. Leighton Rode and Daniel Sprong had the assists on that one. Former Firebird Andrew Podorowski tied it up for the Barracuda at 12:18 into the first, and they went into intermission tied 1-1. Another former Firebird, Jimmy Schultz, gave the Barracuda their first lead of the game at 9:40 into the second, but the Firebirds got the next two goals to give Coachella a 3-2 lead. The first of these was a power play goal by Yanni Newman, with assists from Nick Brouillard and Brandon Biro. And then 26 seconds later, I love that. The only other goal in the second was from Max Lajoie with assists from Ty Nelson and Luke Henman. While the Firebirds went into second intermission up by 1, the Barracuda were able to tie it up at 13:05 into the third, forcing this game to OT. And OT didn't determine a winner, as it often doesn't, so they were off to a shootout. Logan Morrison and Brandon Biro went out for the Firebirds, and they weren't able to convert on the shootout attempts. And unfortunately, both Barracuda skaters scored. So the Firebirds take a single point in this one, but they were 4-for-4 on the PK. And luckily, at this point, it didn't impact the standings. The Firebirds at that point remained second in the division, even after this loss.
The next game that we're going to talk about happened on Saturday, January 25th at the Ontario Reign in a 3-0 loss. You didn't need to watch this game. Kind of like when, the Kraken don't show up, the Firebirds didn't really show up this game. In the first, the Reign took control when Taylor Ward scored at 14:27. Unfortunately, the Firebirds couldn't get anything to work, and the Reign's goaltender kept the door shut all night long. The Reign added another goal in the second period, scored by Jack Studenica. And finally, the Reign added an empty net insurance goal in the third from Jeff Malott to secure a 3-0 victory. On a positive, the Firebirds had a successful 3-on-3 penalty kill. So we have that going for us. And Coco made 18 of 20 saves on the night. So look at some positives. Unfortunately, the offense never showed up, and it is what it is in those types of games.
And as we're recording, the Firebirds are currently playing. It is Sunday, January 26th. They're playing against the Bakersfield Condors. It is late in the third, and they're down 3-2 to the Condors. The two goals were by Furcus, his 8th of the season, and Ryan Winterton, his 12th of the season. So we'll give you a quick little update next week on that one. If you do want to watch the Firebirds this week, they play Wednesday, January 29th versus the Abbotsford Canucks, Friday, January 31st at the Texas Stars, and then Saturday, February 1st at the Texas Stars again. Our top Firebirds this week, we have Ben Myers with 27 points in 32 games played, Yanni Newman with 25 points in 39 games played, and Leighton Rode and Logan Morrison both have 24 points in 39 and 40 games played, respectively.
And taking a look at the AHL standings, Coachella is in third in the Pacific Division with 48 points. The Calgary Wranglers are still holding the top spot with 57 points, and the Ontario Reign are in second with 50 points. It's a tight race with the Colorado Eagles just behind Coachella with 47 points and with 3 fewer games played. So still wide open. Anything can happen.
And that'll take us to our weekly recurring segment of the Sound Table. Our weekly news and notes from around the hockey world outside of the Kraken organization. Starting with Sound Table topic number 1, the hockey world was rocked by a massive 3-way trade between the Avalanche, Hurricanes, and Blackhawks this week. Carolina received Taylor Hall and Mikko Rantanen. Colorado received Martin Necas and Jack Drury, and Chicago got a third-round pick and retains 50% of Rantanen's $9.25 million cap hit. We were kind of thrown into a stir in our group chat when this news came down. What are your thoughts on this trade?
I'll go first. I think this is kind of like sort of like an NBA type trade that we don't usually see in the NHL, so I'm all for it. I love huge trades like this, but it does seem like most teams are pretty like committed to their guys. Like they just kind of ride or die with them. I think some of the highlights here are Chicago sending Taylor Hall and retaining all that money like basically for nothing. It's just insane. And then I if Carolina doesn't extend or sign Rantanen, I think it's probably gonna end up being like a bad trade because his contract expires this year too. That's all I really had to say.
I just I can't imagine Mikko Rantanen not on the Avs, so it's super weird. But also, I feel like this was Carolina saying we're going all in, like we're going cup or bust, like this is the year. That's kind of what this trade meant. So, but huge trade. I still was shocked just by when I saw it was Mikko Rantanen. I was like, oh my god, it's just one of those players that you just picture in that uniform, and they've all played now. I think right, played games with the new team, so it's like it's super wild to think about, but. Big trade, really kind of fun though to watch it unfold. I have to say that much. Like that's what I love. X4 is just those moments when you get to watch these unfold. So really fun.
Can someone explain to me what exactly Chicago gets out of this? Because as the very rookie hockey person, I just couldn't wrap my brain around what they're gaining out of this, only getting a pick and then also retaining 50%. What's going on there?
There's two things. The first is that there is a strategy involved here. The second part is that they're doing it pretty poorly. But when a team is bad and like doesn't really have a shot, they're able to take on salary from teams that are going to do good, like in this trade, and then they get like draft capital out of it or young prospects. That's usually the idea is that, hey, we're not going to win anyway. Let's use our salary cap reserves as a way to also get assets for the future. But they did it horribly because they basically just ended up sending Hall and who could still help Bedard right now. They send Hall away and they also have to retain what 50% of the contract.
Yeah.
And yeah, all they get is a third round pick out of it. That's insane.
I think too sometimes teams that are the facilitators also get some goodwill with other teams too. So I think there's part of that as well because down the line it would be like, oh, remember Chicago did that, and then you kind of have that. It's kind of like a just goodwill in some ways too, especially when they're in the position they are. They know they're not winning, so why not kind of put that out there as well?
Yeah, we should definitely do that soon. And I know Ron Francis also loves to make sure he's friends with all the GMs in the league. Like at the expansion draft, he was saying that he didn't want to force any of them to trade because he wants to be able to trade with them all in the future.
Yep,
I
that's
don't know.
exactly right. Who knows?
Can I tell you a little side story real quick? So I was out on my recess supervision the other day and just, watching kids play, keeping them in line, that kind of stuff. And there was this kid and this other kid, they got into a bit of a tussle and fell down and they were kind of rolling around playing the game that they were playing. And then this kid on top just like face washes the other kid and starts feeding him punches on the ground. I'm like, all right, I better step in and deal with this. But then the kid getting wailed on, he flips it around and starts like feeding punches back and holding the first kid down. And then the first kid gets up and just bashes the other kid in the face. And so I was like, all right, we got to deal with this. We got to split these kids up, see what's going on. Uh, the administration deals with it. And then kid one, his mom comes in and is like, why aren't you protecting my kid? What's going on here? Like you gotta do something about this. Oh, I'm sorry. That wasn't a school story I was talking about. That was Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers, because that's basically what happened in Edmonton last week. Because Connor McDavid has been suspended for 3 games, and the Oilers nation was absolutely in shambles. This ruling came down following a scuffle between Connor Garland and McDavid, where they were tangled up. McDavid held Garland down on the ice, feeding him a couple ground and pound punches before getting separated. When Garland was able to get up, he returned the favor to McDavid, who took exception and retaliated with a cross check to the face. This earned him a match penalty and a hearing with player safety, who passed down a 3 game suspension. Oilers internet and the hockey internet at large went into an absolute tailspin with this, making it sound like the greatest injustice in the history of hockey was just dealt. In an interview in the following days, the Edmonton captain said, I'm not saying I agree with it. I think it may be just a little bit harsh. Maybe the whole thing is avoided when you blow the whistle. To which I have to say, dude, you put your stick through a guy's face, you held him down, and you're playing the victim in this. Am I crazy? Are other people crazy? Or is this just a whole non issue?
I mean, so he's been sort of seen as untouchable in their fan base, so that's why they're all up in arms. But to me, no one's above the law, so to speak, in hockey because it's just unacceptable what he did. And I, to be honest, was totally surprised that he got 3 games. It's warranted. I'm thrilled, but like I just thought, oh, they're just gonna give him maybe one, maybe a slap on the wrist, but obviously, they can't keep doing that to him because it just because he is who he is.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a part of his game that doesn't get talked about enough. Because every time we play the Oilers, we definitely see like specifically, I remember with Gord and with Cartier, him just like cross-checking them and roughing them constantly with no penalties, just absolutely crazy. That Sid Sexiero guy or whatever, he's a clown. He's talking about how McDavid shouldn't have any suspension, basically. Like Matt said, he grabbed his stick in a cross-check posture and absolutely drove it into Garland's face. So yeah, there's no real debate about it.
And on a side note from that, Tyler Myers, F that guy, was also given a 3-game suspension for doing the same thing in the same game. But I mean, we hate Tyler Myers, so I can't think we're fully surprised by that at all. Following that, the suspension to Tyler Myers led to a pretty funny moment in Vancouver on Saturday night. In the 2022 NHL draft, the Vancouver Canucks selected defenseman Elias Pettersson, who spent his rookie season in the AHL playing for Abbotsford until he debuted the other night. What made this call up particularly notable was that this meant that the Canucks roster would feature two players both named Elias Pettersson. This only is the second time in NHL history that two players with the same name played for the same team in the same game. The first time was in the 1988-89 season when there were two Adamses, who both played, as it turns out, for the Canucks as well. And I just thought that was a fun little anecdote that went around the internet on Saturday night.
You meant plural of Greg Adams. I was reading
Yeah,
the notes and I was like, I'm like, what an uncommon last name, Adamsis. I was like, that's crazy. You'd think it'd be like,
yeah, I was trying to pluralize
two
Adams
Greg Adams. Yeah,
because it's not
that
like
makes sense.
it's
Makes a
not like
lot
it
more
was
sense.
Greg Adam and then it's plural. That S on the end just threw me for a little loop, so we had to take a journey there. Next up on the sound table, the Utah Yeti's trademark application has been refused due to a likelihood of confusion, according to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, that felt like it'd be too much confusion between the hockey team and the Yeti Holdings Company products, which are popular for their coolers and drink containers. The Utah Hockey Club has 3 months to bring forward more evidence as to why they should be granted this trademark before needing to move on to something else. The hockey club encountered similar denials for their trademarks of Blizzard and Venom. These names were part of a short list that was announced as a fan vote, which also included the Mammoth Outlaws and Hockey Club. If they aren't able to secure the Yeti's name, which I don't know, I think that's my number one contender. I don't know about you guys. What do you think they should name the squad?
Yeti's too close to Sasquatch, so I actually really don't like it for them because I'm like, it's like sort of our thing, but whatever, it's fine. I don't know. Don't be the hockey club though. Like, like please, like anything but that. But honestly, whatever they pick, it'll be fine. I'm not super invested in the name to be honest, because I just want them to pick one and like be done with it. But not the hockey club, please.
I think they should be the only Utah Jazz in Utah, and then the Jazz become Sonics. So yeah, we're all good. But yeah, I'm going for the Utah Jazz, the hockey team.
All right, next up on Saturday night, the Toronto Scepters and New York Sirens of the PWHL faced off in the second annual battle on Bay Street. This matchup was played at the home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Scotiabank Arena, in front of a sold-out crowd of 19,012 fans. Another amazing turnout to see the hometown team take the 4-2 win. But please, I beg you, random dummies on the internet, tell us all again how women don't belong in pro hockey and no one wants to watch it.
Yep. Everyone watches women's sports. That's all. I don't know. I don't know how else more we can say it and how many more times we have to say it, but people want women's sports. People like women's sports. Women's sports is also badass. I don't know what else I have to say about it. Women belong there.
Next up, Will Borgen, former Seattle Kraken, got the bag. On Saturday, it was announced that former Kraken defenseman was getting extended by the New York Rangers to the tune of 5 years at an AAV of $4.1 million. Borgie seems to have slotted in well with his new team, and now we just have to wait and see what kind of deal will be coming Capo Caco's way on our end of that trade.
I think it's gonna be more than that for sure. That's all I have.
I'm happy for Borgie though. Like good for him for slotting in there. Good for him for getting his payday. Like I'm glad for him. If he really did, if the rumors are true that he wanted out of Seattle, I'm glad he found a spot that he seems to be doing well in, and good for him. I only want the best for him, really.
That's a pretty juicy pay increase too, so
Very
good
much
on good
so.
on you, kid. Good on you. And then lastly, we have our usual closer of the OV record watch. Alexander Ovechkin had a very mid-week He only scored one goal this week. Unfortunately, it was against us, but that puts him at 875 career NHL goals. He is now 19 away from Wayne Gretzky's record of 894. That window of doing it faster is slowly closing in, so he's got to pick it up, and we'll see if that happens. Derek, how did it
Yeah,
feel to be in attendance to see
yeah. I
him
was gonna
chip his way
say,
towards that?
seeing that 875th goal, I'll never forget that, the way it arced and bounced in from across the ice because it was on an empty net. That was just beautiful. I mean, it was just the most like of course moment in the stands. Everyone was like, of course. I was actually the fans behind me were so mad about it. They were raging. They were like, "Oh, why'd you pull the cord?" I was like, hey, I think we should pull him again, to be honest. Like, let's just keep feeding Ovechkin. We're down 3-0 right now. Like,
Also, Ovi hasn't scored on Joey, right, ever. So like that's
Mm-hmm.
cool too. I like
Yeah,
that.
he stayed off that hit list,
Mhm.
which I love to see. Maybe the only silver lining to come out of that game. All right, that'll conclude it for the sound table. Heather, do you want to let us know what our week ahead looks like?
I would love to. The Kraken play Monday, January 27th at the Edmonton Oilers. Then they come back home to play Tuesday, January 28th versus the Anaheim Ducks. Thursday, January 30th, they play against the San Jose Sharks. And we are streaming this one. So please come by, hang out, keep us company. We love your chats. We've had so much fun with you all. So keep that up. And then they play Sunday, February 2nd versus the Calgary Flames.
And Derek, do you want to let the folks on the internet know where they can find us this week?
do I absolutely? AESWTB, AESWTB, AESWTB. At us, follow, go. Doing we're what support go wanna you if this. To listening, your wherever review, star 5, a leave, and YouTube the on sub and like to sure make. Listening for much so you think, always as.
Wow.
Have a great
Okay, now we're
rest
just
of
gonna
your
now we're
day.
just gonna whip, spin it back around.
It won't even
It won't work.
like
It
that.
won't even
It
work.
won't work.
It won't even work. All right, if you missed that somewhere, we're at BTW SEA everywhere. Have a good week, everybody.
We going beneath the waves. Going